now call on the Taoiseach Deputy Micheál Martin to confirm his appointment by the President as Taoiseach, and if you could move the motion, Taoiseach.
Báilm a Cian Corla Cada Choranuil, mar Olas don Dail, gur chryme me anim nu mar Taoiseach in Uil don Uachtrán, agus gur chapse me dáréir. I beg leave to announce, for the information of the Dail, that I have informed the President that the Dail has nominated me to be the Taoiseach and that he has appointed me accordingly. The comprehensive programme for government contains a significant number of matters which will require the assignment of responsibilities and the creation of new functions. In addition, there are a series of changes to coordination within government which I will be implementing in the Department of An Taoiseach. I will give more detail concerning these changes in my comments following the formal nomination of members of the government. Taragim, go in toig Dail Airden leis an Taoiseach Danamú na dachtaí seo a leannis chuna gceapa ag an uachtarán mar cóltaí den rialtas. I move that Dail Airden approve the nomination by the Taoiseach of the following deputies for appointment by the President to be members of the government. Deputy Simon Harris as Tánaiste, Minister for Foreign Affairs and Trade and Minister for Defence. Deputy Pascal Donoghue as Minister for Finance. Deputy Jack Chambers as Minister for Public Expenditure, Infrastructure, Public Service Reform and Digitalisation. Deputy Helen McEntee as Minister for Education and Youth. Deputy Dara O'Brien as Minister for Climate, Environment and Energy and Minister for Transport. Deputy Norma Foley as Minister for Children, Disability and Equality. Deputy Peter Burke as Minister for Enterprise, Tourism and Employment. Deputy Dara Callery as Minister for Social Protection and Minister for Rural and Community Development and the Gaeltacht. Deputy Patrick O'Donovan as Minister for Arts, Media, Communications, Culture and Sport. Deputy Jennifer Carroll McNeill as Minister for Health. Deputy James Brown as Minister for Housing, Local Government and Heritage. Deputy Jim O'Callaghan as Minister for Justice, Home Affairs and Migration. Deputy Martin Hayden as Minister for Agriculture, Food, Fisheries and the Marine. Deputy James Lawless as Minister for Further and Higher Education, Research, Innovation and Science. Rossa Fanning, Senior Counsel as Attorney General to the Government. Deputy Mary Butler as Government Chief Whip and Minister of State attending Cabinet with responsibility for mental health. Deputy Hildegard Naughton as Minister of State attending Cabinet with responsibility for disability. Deputy Noel Grealish as Minister of State attending Cabinet with responsibility for food promotion, new markets, research and development. Deputy Sean Kenny as Minister of State attending Cabinet with responsibility for international and road transport, logistics, rail and ports. In addition, in the coming days, I will take steps to propose further deputies to serve as Ministers of State, covering an expanded range of responsibilities in order to fully address the priorities set out in the programme for government. Legislation required to give effect to this will be introduced without delay. Cian Corla, the government which I am nominating today is a government which will work every day to protect Ireland's strength at this moment of real threat, and it will also take sustained action to address critical social needs. Each member of the new government will have responsibility for a distinct programme of action, but each will also be required to actively contribute to the government's core priorities. A whole-of-government approach, taking key issues out of departmental silos and delivering action on multiple fronts at once, will be a defining characteristic of the government's work. In a number of priority areas, a series of new coordination mechanisms will be put in place, which will be led from the Taoiseach's office. We can all see that there is growing turbulence in the world, and there are very real threats to institutions which are fundamentally important for Ireland. A core priority for this government will be to protect and strengthen Ireland's position within the European Union and in wider international fora. As a fundamental part of this, we must protect the trade which is vital to our economy, and the institutions which are vital to promoting our values. We will join with others in seeking to strengthen the European Union, to complete essential economic reforms within the Union, and to insist on its democratic values. We will also seek to accelerate the opening of new markets and expanding the opportunities for Irish companies to prosper through trade. We will further emphasise the importance of trade to our international diplomacy. In order to underpin this, the trade function will transfer to the newly renamed Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, which will be led by the new Tánaiste Deputy Simon Harris. And next year, we will assume the rotating presidency of the Council. We will use our presidency to promote a positive agenda of concrete actions across a range of social, economic, political and environmental fields. It will be a presidency defined by action. The Minister of State for Europe will be assigned to both the Department of the Taoiseach and the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, and he will play a central role in planning for the presidency and also implementing a range of permanent measures which will deepen the contacts between Ireland and our fellow member states. Everyone who believes in the cause of peace and basic values must fervently hope that the ceasefire in Gaza holds and that we can quickly move to a massive programme of humanitarian aid and reconstruction. Gaza is, however, one part of a wider and deeply troubling development where civilians are increasingly targeted in conflicts and their impacts are escalating to devastating effects. We can see it in Russia's savage war against Ukraine, in the decade of atrocities committed by the Assad regime and Russia in Syria and in the Sudan. In our aid programme and in our work globally, this government will be a leading voice in building alliances to challenge this appalling drift in recent conflicts and wars. The development of a new relationship with the United Kingdom is also a vital part of our work. We will begin holding regular, formal summits to promote active coordination. Each minister will be tasked with building bilateral relations to replace those which were once a routine part of shared membership of the European Union. Moving forward, the work of building a lasting peace and reconciliation on our island will continue to be led by me through the Shared Island Initiative. The unit coordinating the initiative will be strengthened, and we will implement a major expansion in the actions covered by the initiative. We will seek to work closely and constructively with the democratic representatives of the people of Northern Ireland, and aiding the effective working of the institutions of the Good Friday Agreement will form part of the work of every member of the new government. A strong economy which supports high employment and funds public services must never be taken for granted. Ireland has succeeded in the past because we have kept evolving. We've understood that we must work to shape our economy's direction and capacity. We will retain strong public finances, including the provision of reserve funds, which can protect investment programmes and protect services in tougher times. But we'll also deliver a comprehensive programme of investment in both services and infrastructure. In order to ensure that we deliver major projects efficiently, cost-effectively and faster, the structure and operation of the Department of Public Expenditure, NDP delivery and reform will be significantly reformed and strengthened. A new infrastructure division will be established and headed by an official at Deputy Secretary-General level. The unit, together with their ministers, will have responsibility to remove unreasonable roadblocks to essential projects, strengthening expert oversight and ensuring that investment programmes are implemented without delay. The new government will also work to support Irish businesses, not only to find new markets, but also to reduce costs. A roadmap for long-term stability and growth for small and medium-sized industry is an early priority, which will include extensive research and consultation. As part of this, and recognising the importance of tourism to much of our economy, the tourism function is being transferred to the Department of Enterprise. The Minister for Higher and Further Education and Research will lead an effort to ensure that we maximise the economic impact of investment we make in those sectors. And we will ensure that we secure their financial foundations and implement measures to systematically consider the science and research dimensions of government initiatives. And we will plan and work on a major new initiative in the research field. Education will be as important to shaping our future as it has been in shaping our past. We will move forward with a programme of modernisation and reform which will go hand in hand with increased resources which go directly to classrooms in every community in our country. Cian Corla, I am determined that this will be a government which step changes the level and scale of support for people with disabilities and their families. Existing approaches will not achieve the breakthroughs we need, and it is time to move beyond them. Disability will be represented at Cabinet by a full Minister for the first time in our history, and the Minister will have responsibility for many services and will lead cross-government action. And this will include a new model of delivery for vital therapies. In order to reinforce this work, a new disability unit will be established in my department. I am determined that we will begin a new era of community development. In rural, provincial and urban areas, many challenges can only be met if we bring together all relevant agencies, work with the communities and develop interventions targeted specifically at each community's distinct needs. The Minister for Social Protection will lead this work, but all departments will contribute. Ensuring the safety of our communities, the ability to walk the streets or be in your own home without fear is a fundamental responsibility of government. We need to improve the level and impact of community policing, and we need to address new forms of behaviour which are causing great damage. The Department of Justice will be significantly reformed in order to make sure that it is focused on our programme of action. In addition, we will address the fact that government activity on migration is too dispersed and requires more direct leadership. A new division of the Department of Justice will take responsibility for the control of our borders, the management of immigration and coordination of integration. And this will be headed by a Secretary-General with a distinct budget and more direct oversight. We understand the enormous pressures and difficult circumstances of the many of our citizens who cannot find a secure home to buy or rent. Accelerating the number of homes available and delivering direct support to people is absolutely critical to our work. We will ramp up investment in the required infrastructure, and I will shortly announce details of a new coordination and implementation group which will operate from my department. Rural communities and the agri-food sector remain a vital part of our social, economic and cultural life. We will work to deliver a sustainable and prosperous future for them. And recognising the importance of fishing and the marine, I will be appointing a dedicated Minister of State to lead investment in this sector. The achievement of climate and biodiversity goals is not just a challenge for this government and Dail, it is the defining challenge of our age. The scale of investment we need to transform to a green economy means that we must step change investment, both public and private. Based on an approach which has been successful in relation to financial services, I will be establishing a new climate investment clearinghouse, which will initially focus on energy transformation. Both during the pandemic and in the years since, we have shown that reform and progress is possible in health. The full benefits of major reforms, such as the new consultants' contract and service development, will only be fully felt in the next few years. However, we have to also look for ways to transform how we run our health services, not just administratively, but more importantly, in how we treat individual patients. A programme of health digitalisation is central to this transformation. Its implementation is a priority for us, and work will begin without delay. At Cian Corla, each member of the new government will have clear responsibilities for delivering on the ambitious programme we have set out. It will be an outward-looking government, a government which is focused on protecting our economy and delivering sustained progress in housing and education, in helping communities, in transforming services for people with disabilities, and in many other areas. Our country has shown time and time again just how much it can achieve. In building one of the longest continuous democracies in the world, we have overcome many great challenges. I have great faith in our strengths, and I have no doubt that we can, working together with a positive agenda of change, move our country forward together. Go to MaryLouMcDonald.
Call on the Tánaiste, 15 minutes. Tánaiste.
Thank you very much, Cian Corla. And again, I want to congratulate Micheál Martin on his election and appointment as Taoiseach of our country. and of our government, and I want to congratulate all colleagues in Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil and independents who are assuming ministerial office today, and indeed others who will assume ministerial office in the days to come. I very much look forward to working together in partnership for the next 5 years, and we have much to do. It is clear to me from the very detailed and thorough negotiations we undertook on the programme for government that we have a very strong shared understanding of this, of the scale of work we must do, the scale of delivery we must achieve. And between us, we have a very clear mandate from the Irish people, which I do believe is summed up in that one word, delivery. This has been re-emphasised by our own parties in the case of Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil by an extraordinarily strong endorsement through our own respective ratification processes. Where my own party is concerned, we had a new process for the first time, which entailed 5 regional meetings right across our country, which really energised me and the elected members of our parliamentary party as we embark on this new government. For Fine Gael and the Fine Gael ministers appointed here today, entering a 4th consecutive term in government, we're very conscious that this is a historic opportunity. We feel the weight of our responsibility keenly, and we're looking forward to serving the country to the best of our abilities. Personally, I'm deeply honoured to be appointed Tánaiste Minister for Foreign Affairs and Trade and Minister for Defence at a time when I consider these to be critical portfolios for the continuing success and the future security of our country. Ireland's place in the world has never been more important. We are a small, open economy, and that model has served us extremely well. We're also a proud and active member of the European Union, with the many advantages of our single market. But we are much more than just an economy. Ireland believes in multilateralism. Ireland believes in international law. And Ireland will always use our voice to stand up for what is right, be that in Ukraine, the Middle East, or our work through the excellent Irish aid in the Global South. As Tánaiste, I will continue the expansion of our diplomatic strength through Global Ireland. We will not only increase the breadth of our influence by opening new missions, but crucially, we will also increase the depth of our influence with new skills and focus in our existing embassies and consulates, particularly trade depth. In the coming hours, I will convene a trade conference of all of our consulates and embassy in the United States, with the sole focus of engaging with the thousands of decision makers of the Trump administration and ensuring that they know the two-way relationship and strength of Irish investment in the United States. The United States is vital, but we will also bring new focus to the untapped potential of our diplomatic and trade relations across India, the Far East and South America. We will continue to protect our citizens abroad through the meticulous consular work that's carried out and the online transformation of the passport service. Cian, we have no more important sets of relationships than the ones on these islands. The British-Irish reset has worked. It is underway. Our governments are working closely together as partners, and that will be evident in the first intergovernmental summit. A new group of ministers here in new roles will prioritise meeting their counterparts in Northern Ireland to ensure that every opportunity to work together is taken. I travel to Belfast all the time, but will officially travel to Belfast in my new role in the coming days for a round of official meetings. We're putting effort into our relationship, but we're also putting money into projects and infrastructure that matter through the Shared Island Fund that the Taoiseach referenced. Our bridge building will be both physical and philosophical. Ireland will host the biggest international gathering of leaders that has ever come to our shores next year. As well as the EU presidency, we will welcome 40 presidents and prime ministers for a summit of the European political community. I will prioritise the planning and execution of this and a presidency that showcases our country while steering the EU agenda in 2026. Cian, the Defence Forces is an institution that goes above and beyond. It serves Ireland with distinction every single day. When a naval ship sails over the horizon, when our Air Corps aircraft fly out of sight, or when a battalion of peacekeeping troops leave Dublin Airport, they may leave our immediate consciousness. But for the men and women of the only army in Ireland, the work has just begun. They do that work with skill, with dedication, with honour. I want thousands more young people to consider serving their country, their community and their families through a career in the Defence Forces. To achieve this, the biggest transformation in the Defence Forces history needs to be followed through on. Investment has increased, working conditions and pay have been improved, and together there is much more to do. Being militarily neutral, but still having the ability to protect ourselves are not contradictory. We are investing in new aircraft, new radar, new equipment and new vessels. We also need the biggest investment ever undertaken in facilities at our army barracks, at Casement and Hawballen. On policy, Ireland will fully participate at EU level in all matters of defence. Our allies and colleagues in Eastern Europe are under attack. Physical war rages on our continent, and cyber war and espionage threatens us all. Defence cannot be an added extra and must remain at the heart of policy making. I move now to my Fine Gael ministerial colleagues who have the honour of being appointed to office today. I wish to congratulate our Deputy Leader, Deputy Helen McEntee, on being appointed the Minister for Education and Youth, where I know she will prioritise a workforce plan for the sector, overseeing increased capitation to schools, establishing a new DESH Plus scheme to support schools with the highest level of educational disadvantage, the creation of a dedicated national therapy service in education, and continuing to increase the number of special schools and special classes across the country. I congratulate Deputy Paschal Donoghue on being appointed Minister for Finance once again. His primary priority will be the overarching essential of ensuring the economic security of our state with a strong enterprise and fiscal framework, which will prioritise economic and employment growth, competitiveness, fiscal responsibility, investment in innovation, energy and decarbonisation. He will, working with Cabinet colleagues, prepare and submit a new medium-term fiscal plan, which will set out our sustainable budgetary plans for the next 5 years, and will, working with Minister Chambers, bring forward the next budget in a range of measures to help our small and medium businesses and to help contain energy costs for businesses and households. I'd like to sincerely congratulate Deputy Jennifer Carroll-MacNeill on her appointment as Minister for Health, where she will oversee an absolute game changer in marrying resources with reform by bringing forward multi-annual funding for our health service, developing a new workforce plan for children and adolescents' mental health services, and advancing a statutory home care scheme for old people. I know she will also build on the significant progress which has already been made on transforming women's healthcare. I'm delighted to congratulate Deputy Martin Hayden on being appointed Minister for Agriculture, Food, Fisheries and the Marine, a role I know he will take on with great experience and great energy. He will have many priorities in the time ahead, but I want in particular to highlight the work I want him to undertake on Ireland's nitrates derogation renewal plan and implementing an audit of all farm schemes with the intention of cutting red tape for farmers and ensuring a farm succession scheme which supports generation renewal. I congratulate Deputy Patrick O'Donovan on his appointment as Minister for Arts, Culture, Communications, Media and Sport, where his priority actions will be working with the Minister for Justice on the passage of the Defamation Bill, ensuring stable funding for RT and other public service broadcasters, and accessible funding for local radio and print media, the redevelopment of our GPO, examining the feasibility of the Minor Capital Works grant scheme to support arts and cultural facilities that are not funded through the Arts Council, and continuing the vital rollout of the National Broadband Plan. I congratulate Deputy Peter Burke on being reappointed as Minister for Enterprise, but this time Minister for Enterprise, Tourism and Employment, where his key priorities will be the publication of a whole-of-government action plan on competitiveness and productivity within the first year, launching the Year of the Invitation as a new tourism initiative, and publishing and implementing a new national tourism policy to 2030. Crucially, we have agreed the establishment of a new small business unit in the department to help bring a dedicated focus to this area. And I congratulate Deputy Hildegard Naughton on being appointed a Minister of State attending Cabinet with responsibility for disability, which is going to be a vital role for all of us in government of working together across key ministries. To deliver the step change which is required in disability services, Minister Naughton's priority will be the publication and funding of a new national disability strategy, working in partnership with disabled people and their representative organisations to co-design improvements to services, identifying measures to attract and retain staff and developing a new workforce plan for the sector, implementing the Action Plan for Disability Services, reforming the Disability Act and implementing the Autism Innovation Strategy. I commend and congratulate all ministers from the Fine Gael Party, the Fianna Fáil Party and Independents. I'm excited to work with each of you in your respective briefs. Aside from some of the individual ministerial portfolios I've highlighted, we face a number of key collective challenges, which, as I said earlier, the public wishes us to address with renewed energy and focus. The need to make further progress on housing is intrinsic to the social contract in this country. It was a priority for all parties in the programme for government talks, and it will be driven by us with a relentless focus, I know, on that delivery. We'll work together to bring a new focus to the delivery of infrastructure that's required to bring our country to the next stage of its development and enable the faster delivery of housing and much more. We'll work together to prioritise investments across the justice system, recruiting at least 5,000 additional Gardaí and building those stronger, safer communities. And this government will be ambitious on climate action to decarbonise the economy, continue to reduce emissions and lead a revolution in renewable energy in pursuit of energy independence, while ensuring energy security, protecting nature and promoting a circular economy. And most importantly, at a time when our country and our world yearns for stability, this is a government that will deliver 5 budgets, and that is vital, and that is indeed our mandate, and we will continue to have that fundamental commitment of delivery at all costs. Cian Corla, I believe we've got the balance right between investment and reform. We stand at the outset of a 5-year term, which will see significant advances in the social, economic and environmental goals we share, and in fulfilment of the mandate that was given to us by the Irish people. For my own part, I'm excited and energised to play a leadership role as Tánaiste, to work with this talented team of people, and I pledge to work relentlessly on delivering the programme for government in the interests of the people of this great country. Gur Margaret.
And we move now to the Sinn Féin slot, Deputy MacDonald.
So, Cian Corla, I'm having a serious episode here of deja vu. I mean, all of a sudden, I am transported back to 2020. The Tánaiste spoke of balance and having a balanced programme. I have to say that which is just manifest and obvious. You've got the gender balance wrong. Yeah. You're very male. Some of you are pale, but you're very, very male. I always think that politics, in as much as we can, and in a representative democracy, should strive to reflect and mirror the communities that we represent. I have to say, as an Irish woman, leave aside that I'm a parliamentarian, I find it kind of depressing that again we see the absence of us. And I want to put that on the record. You say that you have a positive agenda for change. You say that we face historic opportunities. So you're always good at the kind of grandiose claims at the beginning of the game of politics for you. You said, I remember, I'm old enough to remember last time you told us that housing was the priority. Actually, you told us that. You said that you were going to sort out housing, that you had heard the electorate, that you recognised just how bad things were. That's what you said, and that's what you pledged. So where are we now? So many struggling to put an affordable, secure roof over their heads, sky-high house prices, extortionate rent, those in need of council housing waiting years and years on waiting lists. And you preside over a shameful level of homelessness. We now have structural, ongoing, growing homelessness in Ireland at a rate that none of us would ever have imagined or dreamt of. That's your record on housing. That's what you have done. So if that was your priority, and if that was your best shot at your priority over 5 years, well then God help us if we see what a mediocre performance or the issues that you don't care about, what that's going to look like. Yeah. People can't get the health care that they need when they need it. Our hospitals and A&Es are constantly overcrowded. Hundreds of thousands languish on treatment waiting lists. The trolley crisis now is just a daily occurrence. It's mundane. It's nearly taken as read day in, day out. And it's almost impossible to get a GP or a dentist's appointment. That's your record on health. Working parents fork out the equivalent of a second mortgage in childcare fees. There's a serious lack of places in the system. There's been no real demonstration of respect and advancement for early childhood educators and childcare workers, and thousands of children are on waiting lists. Stress, worry, pressure, that's your record on childcare. And households continue to struggle to make it to the end of the week, to light and heat their homes, to put food on the table with soaring grocery bills, rip-off insurance costs, never mind the rent or the mortgage. Hard-working people see the wages go out as quickly as they come in, and sometimes more quickly. That's your record on the cost of living. All these problems, by the way, existed when you clubbed together in government in 2020, and they're still with us today, worse than before, a testament to your collective failure. Being entrusted with ministerial office is a big responsibility, and I would genuinely wish anybody who is determined to make a real and positive difference well. However, mark this, without a radical change of policy and approach, the cabinet that has been announced tonight will amount only to a rearranging of the deck chairs. Hear, hear. And as this government takes office, I have no doubt that ordinary people face more of the same. For anybody who believed that the leopard had finally changed its spots, well, the cynical approach to government formation taken by Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and the so-called independents surely disabused them of that notion. Instead of focusing on the challenges that face our people, you wrangled over the rotation of Taoiseach, who gets which ministerial office, who gets the big meeting room in Leinster House. You turned your attention, in other words, to feathering your own nests. And now it feels like a bumper season of the Late Late Show for you lot, a ministry for everyone in the audience. More super junior ministers, more junior ministers, more expenses for ministers. This smacks of entitlement, the largest ever number of ministers in the history of the state. The public, the electorate, have every right to ask, are we getting value for our money? Did anybody go to a polling station on November 29th last thinking, what Ireland really, really needs is a raft of new junior ministers and super junior ministers? No, I don't think so. Parents who can't get an assessment of needs for their child certainly didn't. Patients who can't get a hospital appointment didn't. Mothers and fathers raising children in emergency accommodation certainly didn't. Communities impacted by crime and antisocial behaviour didn't. Because we need more nurses, more therapists, more Gardaí, more teachers, more SNAs. But the needs of ordinary people, it seems, are simply an afterthought. You instead drove on to fashion a brazen, grubby deal to simply grease the wheels of power. And if the last government was formed on the back of a Micheál Martin U-turn regarding Fine Gael, this government is formed on the back of a Micheál Martin U-turn regarding Michael Lowry. We know, following the Moriarty Tribunal's findings of corruption, the Taoiseach's view of Deputy Lowry was that he was unfit to hold public office. Described as a rogue politician, demands were made by you, Taoiseach, for him to resign his seat. But now, today, you're happy to have him as the kingmaker in the formation of your government. And the question for the Taoiseach that you have not answered is simply this: what changed? When did you stop considering Deputy Lowry to be a rogue politician? When did you go from viewing him as someone unfit to hold public office to viewing him as someone with whom you wish to form a government? I think the answer is clear. That changed when it suited you, when it suited your interests. And it demonstrates that Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil will do anything, as I have said, to attain and hold on to power. Power at all costs. You prioritised doling out sweeteners to Michael Lowry's group. To satisfy the regional independents, you attempted to engineer a stroke to allow those TDs to be in government and opposition at the same time, a move that would make a mockery of this Dáil and undermine the integrity of this House. But we saw that off as a united opposition, and thank goodness for that. This is a government built on stroke politics, and you see in your programme for government, this is where things get interesting, and this is where the lofty rhetoric really gets tested. Because what's noteworthy is the lack of timelines, specifics and clarity. The lack of ambition too, the lack of any new ideas is mind-blowing. Your greatest failure has been in housing. A failure so profound and so deep that it affects every aspect of our society. But rather than change direction, which a rational, serious government would do, no, you seek to dress up your failure as success. Throughout 2024, Micheál Martin, Simon Harris, Darragh O'Brien trumpeted the claim that 40,000 new houses would be built by the end of last year. And you repeated this during the election campaign. Today, the CSO full-year report exposed your claim as bluff and spin, with housing completions for 2024 falling far short of your figure, missing even your original target. The fact is that less homes were built last year than the year before. So far from turning a corner, as the Taoiseach so frequently claims, you are in fact going around in circles. This programme for government guarantees that the Fianna Fáil-Fine Gael housing disaster will continue, that home ownership will remain beyond the reach of working people, and that the need to ramp up the delivery of affordable housing and of council housing will remain unmet. But it's not only in housing where your poverty of ambition leaps from the page. Where's the public model of childcare that Simon Harris talked a big game on? Not a whisper. Where's the delivery date for €200 a month childcare? The plan that we had, right, that you borrowed, but that you're not going to deliver. Where's the specific commitment to abolish the means test for carers? Just more vague pledges to improve the lives of carers, but no specific actions. And there is nothing in this document to convince us that the scandal of children with scoliosis and spina bifida being left to wait in agony for their operations will be brought to an end. Shameful, and shame on you. Irish reunification represents the greatest opportunity for the progress, prosperity and future of our country. Any government worthy of its salt would actively plan and prepare for constitutional change and for the ending of partition, for a united Ireland. Your programme claims that you're committed to the unity of the Irish people. You talk about a focus on investment and reconciliation, the implementation of the Good Friday Agreement, and that's all well and good. But the document contains no meaningful commitments to achieving Irish unity. There's no plan for unity, no effort to reach out to those of a different view on unity, and it dodges entirely the need for a citizens' assembly. Your programme is completely silent on how this government will prepare for Irish unity referendums as provided for in the Good Friday Agreement. Generational change is happening in Ireland, and the day will come when people will have their say on unity. So treading water is not good enough. You need to put Irish reunification at the very heart of work for the future. For 15 months, the people of Ireland have protested in support of the people of Gaza and Palestine, stood with them as they faced genocide. They have also called on you repeatedly to sanction Israel, to pass the Occupied Territories Bill with urgency. But now, despite your previous assurances and your posturing, Micheál Martin proposes to scrap the bill, to set back the goal of ceasing trading with companies who profit from the dispossession, the apartheid and the brutal dehumanisation of the Palestinian people. I regard this as a stunning betrayal. Humanitarian aid is necessary. Reconstruction is absolutely vital. But be clear, on its own, that is not enough. Israel must be held to account. There have to be consequences for the Netanyahu's regime and for their genocidal actions. And there will be, I feel certain, a united call from these benches, the opposition benches, and from the Irish public for this Irish government to do the right thing by Palestine. I've said before that elections are where Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael make their promises, and it's in government where you break them. If this document is the product of Fine Gael's supposed new energy, then I'm afraid the tank is running on empty and the lights have gone out. If this document is where Fianna Fáil's moving forward together intends to bring us, then it points in the direction of continued failure. And our people deserve so much better. They are entitled to see ambition to make their lives better. Another 5 years of mediocrity simply won't cut it. The priorities for government must be to ensure that everybody can have a home of their own, to transform our health services, to deliver affordable childcare, to really tackle the cost of living. These things can and must be fixed, but they will only be fixed by moving beyond the broken politics that Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael have followed for generations. I believe the day will come when we will have a new government for working people, and that is why we will work harder than ever to represent people, to stand up for them, to fight their corner, to convince and to reassure more people that there is a better way.
Thank you, Deputy. Thank you. We now move to the Labour Party. Deputy Ivana Bacik, 1 minute, shared with 4 other colleagues.
Cian Corla, I offer personal congratulations to the new ministers. We wish you well in your portfolios. We need to see positive change delivered by this new government. There's one very negative change. We see a reduction in the number of women in cabinet from 4 to 3. As many men call James as there are women in this incoming cabinet, that's a negative change. And we don't see any sign of positive change either from your programme for government. No transformative vision, no state construction company, no public childcare scheme, no strength of protection of workers' rights, no radical measures to protect our climate and biodiversity. We in Labour cannot support this programme for government. It's a recycled programme in a circular economy, and our new TDs are going to outline further why it lacks vision, why it lacks any sense of positive change for the communities that we represent.
Cian Corla. Cian Corla dús bara bhálam mo bhuíchas a gháil do bhaintear cathair limní as ucht an deis seo a thuairt dom agus mo chomórdas leis an Taoiseach agus an rialtas nua. As I rise here to speak for the very first time as a TD from my home city of Limerick, I want to sincerely thank the people for electing me, without whom I would not be here today. I am cognizant of what an enormous privilege and responsibility it is to be able to speak freely in Dáil Éireann, the Parliament of a free republic. They say to govern is to choose, and this coalition of convenience has chosen, in the flowery language of ambivalence, to do very little to deliver the meaningful change that the people who elected me sought. There is nothing flowery about this governing arrangement, and this whole sordid arrangement has more than a whiff of it. As we meet here today, I am conscious that homelessness, house prices and rents in this country have never been as high, with the number of new homes built last year falling by nearly 7%. Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and their coalition colleagues have shown through deed that they will not and cannot deal with this crisis. The government's own Housing Commission report has called for a radical reset of housing policy, and the government's response to this has been to effectively pretend that it doesn't exist. It's clear from the programme for government that this administration is intent on ploughing the same failed furrow as the previous one. We in Labour believe in an active state and a social floor for health and housing, a threshold beneath which no citizen would be allowed to fall. And it is on that basis we will hold this government to account.
Thank you,
the people of Limerick elected me to be a strong young voice to represent them, and I will not let them down.
Gurmagat Cian I'd like to firstly thank the people of Dublin South West for placing their trust in me, and particularly I would like to thank my parents, Mary and Morris, my wife Maeve and our son Fionn for all their support, without which I just wouldn't be here. I also want to extend my personal congratulations to the Taoiseach and all the ministers appointed today. Your success will be our success. But I must say, I am deeply concerned at the lack of ambition on climate in the programme for government, and indeed the lack of priority in your speeches today for it. The Greens may be gone from government, but the climate emergency remains our greatest collective challenge facing our country and facing this world. I fear that many of the proposals in the programme for government, and even some of the individuals involved in this government, contradict any notion of positive climate action. What hope have we of reducing transport emissions, increasing the use of public transport and cycling as viable options if the major policy change of this government is to pour more tarmac and induce more private traffic? This new government has also opened the door to more data centres, but bowing to the needs of the tech billionaires without a net increase in renewable electricity is irresponsible, it contradicts our climate obligations, and it increases electricity costs for ordinary people. We must secure Ireland's energy future. We must provide thousands of new green jobs.
Deputy Owen Kenny.
Thank you, Concorla. I wish to congratulate my fellow Corkman, Micheál Martin, on his election as Taoiseach, congratulate his wife Mary and their children. As the youngest member of this new Dáil, it is a real privilege to address the House, and I want to thank the people of Cork North Central who have given me this opportunity. As a secondary school teacher, I've witnessed successive governments failing on education, particularly in relation to special educational needs. One parent in my own constituency has applied to 10 schools for her child who has special needs to start secondary school in September. That family remains second on the waiting list at the 10th school. Fianna Fáil want to class themselves as the party of education and want to talk about their proud legacy in education, as we heard earlier. I would ask them to consider every day over this Dáil term the very families calling to my constituency office in fear that their child will not have a school place for the coming academic year. We in the Labour Party understand that sufficient current and capital funding is needed to meet the demand for school places, both in special schools and mainstream classes, and we must ensure every school designs are fully accessible for all. The problems for parents don't stop there. The cost of childcare. Parents will tell you that in order to pay for early years childcare, it will cost almost an entire wage. The state should be ensuring that parents can afford early years childcare. As with many socio-economic issues, it is those with the least have the most to lose.
Deputy George Lawler.
Thank you, Concorla. At the outset, could I thank my family, the people of Wexford, my friends and supporters, and the Labour Party for affording me this opportunity to stand in this very historic chamber. I would like to congratulate and wish well the Taoiseach and his cabinet. If I could single out one of the Jameses, James Brown, my fellow county man, on his elevation to cabinet, the first Fianna Fáil senior cabinet minister in 60 years from Wexford. The re-election of President Trump in America, Cian Corley, is likely to present some challenges, to say the least, in the context of world, European and indeed Irish trade. From an Irish viewpoint, if even a partial amount of what President Trump is threatening to impose in terms of trade and tariffs comes to pass, then our economic relationship with the USA faces an uncertain future. If his threats come to pass, we could find ourselves in serious difficulties from a trade relationship point of view. And sadly, in my hometown of Wexford this week, we saw the Trumpian ways at work when some 310 workers at BNY Mellon, an IDA-supported company, learned their fate in an 8-minute meeting, which indicated that the majority of them were to lose their jobs. Can I ask the newly reappointed Minister for Enterprise to immediately engage with the workers and management in Wexford of BNY Mellon in an effort to find a total replacement with another company? It is up to the Government and the IDA to work closely on this and immediately, with urgency, find a replacement company to offer employment to these highly skilled workers.
We move to the Social Democrats. I have no names, but I take it it's yourself, Deputy O'Callaghan.
Cian Corley. At the outset, Taoiseach, I do want to, on behalf of the Social Democrats, congratulate you on your election. Today is a very special day for you and your family, and for your wife, Mary, and your friends. I do also want to take this opportunity to acknowledge the crucial role that families play and partners play in supporting all of us in public life, very much behind the scenes. This is rarely acknowledged, and I think it is appropriate to do so. I also want to congratulate all those who have been appointed to Cabinet. It's a proud day for you and your family and friends. However, Ceann Comhairle, this government is already going in the wrong direction. Only 3 women with senior ministries appointed to Cabinet. That's down from 4 in the last government. Do you not see anything wrong with this, Taoiseach? It's 2025. Do you really think this is acceptable? Do you not think women should have equal representation at Cabinet level? Earlier I said that the Social Democrats would work constructively with the government and other members of the opposition in this Dáil, and I reiterate that now. Social Democrats have always been evidence-based and solution-focused in our efforts to make Ireland a more equal, sustainable and inclusive society. That will be our approach in this Dáil too. We will also robustly hold this government to account. As members of opposition, that is our job. The decision by the government to prevent the Dáil sitting next week is a brazen attempt to avoid sufficient scrutiny and accountability. Where is the urgency to tackle the challenges that we face in housing, disability, health and climate action? Where is the new energy that we heard so much about during the election campaign? It seems to have fizzled out. It is now 3 months since the Dáil sat regularly. The country faces huge challenges that need urgent action. While government work has ground to a standstill, one unilateral action was taken last week, which I want to highlight today. The Taoiseach endorsed the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, which has been routinely weaponised to smear critics of the State of Israel as anti-Semitic. We saw examples of this ourselves on the front page of the Sunday Independent just earlier in the week. The outgoing Israeli ambassador, Dana Ehrlich, accused Simon Harris of being anti-Semitic and claimed that President Michael D. Higgins is fostering incitement. In the article, it was clear that she was relying on the IHRA definition to make these scurrilous accusations. And the government, by endorsing this definition, has opened up the door to these kind of baseless attacks. Does the Taoiseach now regret his decision? Anti-Semitism is vile and must be opposed in all of its forms. However, criticism of the State of Israel is not anti-Semitic, and this country should not endorse a definition that has been used to silence critics of his genocide. Taoiseach, in the run-up to the election, you and the Tánaiste and the previous Minister for Housing all insisted that 40,000 homes would be delivered last year in the absence of any evidence. In fact, you contradicted forecasts from the CSO, the ESRI and the Central Bank to spin this yarn. Trying to massage home delivery numbers in advance of an election, you have now been found out. There was a shortfall of almost 10,000 homes. Your dismal failure on housing is causing huge levels of anxiety and suffering. The government is creating a society where only those on the highest of incomes can afford a home. It's dangerous and dystopian. Fewer homes were delivered last year than in 2023. That does not sound like a plan that is working. The government's housing plan is taking the countries backwards, not forwards. Median house prices last year increased by an average of €40,000. Who can possibly afford these kind of eye-watering price increases? We need a radical reset on housing. Ceann Comhairle, the recent election had an air of unreality about it. Far from being prudent fiscal stewards, Fianna Fáil, and in particular Fine Gael, threw around tax and spending promises like snuff at a wake. They and others pretended that you can ramp up spending while slashing taxes. What we didn't hear from either government party, yet alone from the motley crew of independents, was a coherent strategy for continued economic growth and stability. This is needed to facilitate the investment in infrastructure and public services that this country so badly needs. It is simply not credible to put those investments and to plan them while massively eroding the tax base. Neither was there any sense of a contingency plan should the global economy take a turn. Donald Trump's inauguration this week brings this risk into sharper focus, given his plans to upend trade. His announcement that he will exit the OECD tax deal poses a particular threat. Ireland, as a small, open economy, will be heavily exposed. There are risks not only to our windfall tax corporation receipts, but also to jobs and incomes. We need an alternative economic strategy. Count Corla, Donald Trump is not the only threat on the horizon. In Europe, right-wing and far-right populists are on the rise on a platform of nationalism and xenophobia. Ireland, as we know, is not immune to the far-right and the spread of disinformation. There are those who seek to blame every problem on vulnerable minorities, those that seek to thrive on hate. All of us in this Dáil should stand against these malign actors. Ireland is a country that has always been welcoming. We don't punch down. It is therefore deeply concerning that the programme for government includes proposals to restrict the movement of international protection applicants. This sounds like de facto detention. Seeking international protection is not a crime. The government must urgently clarify this proposal. Count Corla, it's nearly 2 months since the people went to the polls on November 29th, and the message they sent us was very clear. They want action on the many challenges that this country faces, not inertia. The Social Democrats will work constructively with all parties in this Dáil to make this happen.
Thank you, Deputy. And we move now to the Independent and Parties Technical Group. I don't have a running order, but it's yourself, Deputy.
Taoiseach, I wish to congratulate you and your family on your appointment. Taoiseach, for far too long, Donegal has been left behind. The waiting times in Letterkenny General Hospital this week on average 24 hours. Going into Letterkenny by the Polestar roundabout, emergency services cannot even enter. They are stuck. What used to be a 5-minute journey is now 45 minutes. The boats in Kellybegs are tied up, the fish factories are silent. This never used to be, but this is what's going on now. The Creeslaw families are still waiting for a public inquiry. 10 people lost their lives, and they're still waiting on a public inquiry. And the biggest humanitarian crisis of them all is the defective concrete crisis. Tonight, as we speak, there's families going to hotels. A red weather warning coming. They can't stay in their houses. They're structurally unsound. There's houses that have been remediated on top of Weetabix blocks. We are in a humanitarian crisis in Donegal. 10,000 families stuck in a loop waiting. You talk about concrete action. Well, the concrete in Donegal isn't even regulated. You talk about building bridges. Why not build a bridge over the Swilly and relieve Letterkenny and stop it choking? Because that's what's going on. The A5, the corridor to the northwest, well, let's help the A5 and let's help Letterkenny. Let's build a bridge over the Swilly. I would like to say that I am totally here for the people of Donegal. Donegal is the most important thing for me. The families, we need help. I'm asking you now, over the next 5 years, to prioritise Donegal.
Deputy Brian Stanley.
2
minutes 20.
I want to congratulate the Taoiseach on his appointment, and we now have a new government, but we have a new government of 2 old Conservative parties and 1 regional group. The two civil war parties are united now like never before. The problem is that nothing separates them except one letter, FF, F and FG. The government's first action was to create more jobs for the boys. The girls seem to have been forgotten, and to suspend it all yet again until the 5th of February. We now have a programme for government, but on the big issues facing workers and families, it fails. For example, on housing, where is the rent freeze that hundreds of thousands of people need across this state, that they need so badly? Not even rent controls, effective rent controls, are we going to have? No, we're going to have a rent register instead. Where is the massively expanded affordable housing scheme for those middle-income families that desperately need it? Where is the commitment to drive on with cost rental schemes to provide homes for those low-paid workers who are just above the income limit for social housing? And that's really important, Taoiseach, that that's addressed. Last year, Minister Darragh O'Brien promised that we would have up to 40,000 new homes finished. or at least the high 30s. What happened? We had 30,000, 3,000 less than 2022. On health, there is no evidence of a commitment or determination to get the national health system in place as envisaged under Sláinte Care that was put in place back since 2016 and 17. No timelines to put that in place. Instead, what we have is we muddle along with the inefficient two-tier system we have. No sign of a European type one that's in most European countries for the last 60 and 70 and 80 years. Hundreds of thousands of people will continue to languish on hospital waiting lists and for appointments. School children who should have a dental check-up in 3rd and 4th class primary school, instead what they're seeing is they're having it in 4th and 5th and 6th year in secondary school. That's what's happening in County Laois, Taoiseach. It's an absolute scandal. The drugs or the dental treatment services scheme will continue to be non-existent in many counties, including County Laois, because the private dentists will not operate the scheme. And you have to get this into your head. You have to hire public dentists within the HSE system. That is the only way that that can be provided. The private system is not working.
Thank you, Deputy Catherine Connolly.
Thank you very much.
I do sport about bottler cogorgigus a gowal higan Taoiseach agus is privilege intach a vet the Taoiseach an cheer neawan urawan ach ga ur agus the clan atá céad fin céad tí fiorda agus donna Harry nua agus bawatlam mahakioch the horchsich ach ni féidir mar tá aspa ahantas ó híh na natria bonúsacha atá tastal go géir ag ascairt as na pandémia COVID agus ag ascairt as na pandémia tíhiíochta agus ag ascairt as na cogaí atá golarái go leanúnach. I won't repeat. I just go on to recognise and congratulate my super colleagues from Galway West and Galway East, Deputy Grealish, Deputy Canny, Deputy Hildegard Naughton, and I also want to acknowledge the new Chief Whip, who I think worked extremely hard in the last Dáil and worked with everybody, and I just want to acknowledge that. While I would love to work with the government, and I will in as far as I can on those things that I agree with, I'm extremely concerned that you've utterly failed to recognise that we need absolute fundamental change arising from COVID, arising from climate change and arising from the normalisation of war. And I'm very concerned about your programme for government that smacks a little bit of artificial intelligence. And when you look at the wording in it, and it's very vague and aspirational, and then very, very specific when it comes to something like reforming the triple lock. We're going to progress the Occupied Territories Bill, progress it, not enact it as a matter of urgency, progress it, but we're going to reform the triple lock. And it's extremely worrying what is put down as we will do, as opposed to the other matters. I'm extremely concerned that you have adopted and included in the programme for government the anti-Semitic definition. You're leaving us wide open for charges of being anti-Semitic when I unreservedly condemn the actions of Israel. What they are doing is genocide. They are carrying out genocide. And then we have this definition that you've adopted without discussing with the Dáil. You haven't referred at all to climate change. The minister to your right there is on record for saying the planet is burning. If the planet is burning, then the programme for government has got to reflect that. Doesn't reflect it at all. And what you have done is normalised homelessness. I'm ashamed to stand here today with 15,000 people homeless in our country. And the new Minister for Health, I congratulate you and I wish you the best. I come from a city where there are 61 people waiting on trolleys yesterday with no hope of a bed.
We now move to the independent technical group sharing time. Deputy Padder Toby in 2 minutes.
And it looks like this government is an East Coast government. Also, it looks like there is only one minister from Connacht Ulster here on the cabinet. 60% of the ministers in this government are from the Greater Dublin area. That is not spatial development. The West is certainly not awake in your government today. I think it's incredible that your cabinet is being named today on the day where the news broke that 30,000 homes were built in the state last year. The biggest issue affecting this country, and this government has been in reverse in relation to that issue. And while the new Taoiseach awoke today on the day of his elevation Tens of thousands of people in this country awoke in homelessness. While you were in the Oras today, young families were in the airports emigrating to escape high prices in rents and houses as well. And, you know, it's also the case that we had ministers who had to wait for their ministerial seal by one day. But there are hundreds of thousands of people who are waiting in this country for hospital treatment and health treatment at the same time. Today, it's interesting to see as well that so much of the campus around here were festooned by Gardaí. And yet so many of our town centres, citizens are dodging them for the lack of Gardaí in those particular areas. I think it's important as well just to say that many parents are lying awake every night trying to find out how they're going to make ends meet with the money that they have. And yet we have newly minted junior ministers who are going to be counting €800 a day in salary for every day that they work over the next while. And I think one of the biggest problems I have with this government at the moment is the fact that things are moving so slowly on so many different projects. And I think it's interesting that you're waiting 89 days from the last time that there were consecutive sittings of this Dáil to the next time. I think there is a slow, bureaucratic culture at the heart of this government, and it's also to be seen in practically every infrastructural project that's happening at the moment. And I think that has consequences. This government has the urgency of the National Children's Hospital.
Deputy Paul Lawless.
It is nearly 2 months since the people of this country went to the polls, and I stand here today humbled by the trust and faith the people of Mayo have entrusted upon me. Thousands of people elected me here to speak for them, and yet today it is my first opportunity. 2 months to form a government, when the reality is it is effectively the same government. There has been no real change in relation to this government. And another 2 weeks voted upon today for another 2 weeks of a break. TDs, it seems, get more holidays than junior infants. While Ireland waits, this government delays. I was elected by farmers who work day and night to keep food on their tables, but can hardly keep their own heads above water. I was elected by parents who haven't seen their children in years, who are forced to emigrate for a better future. I was elected by young couples who can't afford to rent, buy or build in the communities upon which they grew up. For them, I take this job seriously. I came here to work, I came here to challenge this government, to hold you to account and to offer positive and proactive solutions over the years ahead. Yet, what's the first thing this government have done? Vote for a further delay. Delays, it seems, are the order of the day in housing, in infrastructure and in healthcare too. If delays were an Olympic sport, this government would certainly bring home gold. The people of Mayo and indeed the entire country deserve better than excuses and inaction. They deserve a government that shows up and shows the urgency that you speak of, Tánaiste. Finally, I want to congratulate the Cabinet. I want to congratulate my constituency colleague, Deputy Dail Cleary, as well, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Concorla. And look, to start off, just to congratulate the government and the newly appointed ministers. It's a special day for you and your family. But I have to say, I feel that this government that has been presented to us tonight is like a shabby, broken-down house that has just had a slap of paint thrown over it, and, you know, it'll all be fine on the night, lads. That's what this government is. I read your programme for government. I thought I'd be in for a long night's read. I was shocked to find out that this programme for government was a copy of the last programme for government. So this government has been out with the same and back in with the same. I have to say, this government has ignored the fact that 15,000 people will be homeless tonight, that 611 people are on hospital trolleys as we speak inside here, members, that we have people up in their parents' rooms, in box rooms, that will never, a generation that will never own their own home, thanks to this government and thanks to 20 years of Fine Gael almost in this government and being backed up by Fianna Fáil in one form or another. This foundation, this house that you've built, that you've had the slap of paint over, Taoiseach, has been reinforced by a set of independents with a serious crack in their foundation. And I have to say to you...
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Michael Fitzmaurice.
First of all, Taoiseach, I want to wish you the best of luck. In relation to our Minister for Foreign Affairs. I think I listened to John Deasy the other day, and my God, we have some work to do in America to build relations, because I heard that our diplomats shunned the Americans on the side that's in now, and we have some work to do. So I wish you the best in that. In relation to housing, it is sickening to see 2 weeks ago a thing coming out, 60,000 houses started. A child didn't know why, because there was a rebate back. And today we see we're 7% back in housing. More people come into this country than we have houses built to accommodate them. That's the facts, along with the people who have here. In agriculture, I want to wish the new minister well, but the one thing you need to get to work on straight away, in acres, there's a major problem in Wexford. There are farmers 2 years waiting that had inspections, and the IT system, the same BS we hear every day. I want to wish my colleagues from the West the best of luck. Deputy Cleary, Deputy Kenny, Deputy Nocturne and Deputy Grealish, the best of luck. I would ask you, Minister, in Agriculture, think of a retirement scheme, and also basically the farmers at the moment in the line, the suckler cows. We see this evening there's going to be layoffs. I would ask you to address that straight away in a factory coming up. Why? Because we've lost the suckler herd over the last 5 years. We intend to work constructively with you, but it will be on producing the goods, not putting things like the Late Late Show, one for everyone in the audience.
Thank you, Deputy. Now, that concludes contributions with regards to the nomination. I must now put the question, and the question is that Dáil Éireann approves the nominations by the Taoiseach for appointment by the President to be the members of government. Deputies who are in favour of the question say tá. Deputies who are against say níl. I deem the question to be carried. Vote all. The clerk will now ring the bells.